I had all the hope and it didn't pan out the way I thought. But I do know that you are a good God. I haven't figured out why you did this, but I don't need to. It's not, I don't need to know everything in God's plan. I think it's just a matter of just trusting Him. And then I just needed help to get through.
Well, Castleview, hey, great to have you back again today for our podcast. And I'm really excited. We had a special service this past Sunday, one of our trending series, and we've been going through a number of trending topics. And we did pro-life, and we've talked about a number of things. And this past Sunday, we talked about pain and suffering. And in particular, how could, if there is a good God and if He loves us, how could a good God that knows what's happening in our lives, how could He allow pain and suffering to take place? And this week, our special guest is somebody that is very close to our church. A lot of our church members know her well. Some of you that are newer to the church may not have met her yet, but I'm excited for you to be able to get to know her. Debbie Iepson is with us today. Debbie, so good to have you. Thank you.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Yeah, you're back. You're brand new.
I'm back.
Aren't you glad?
Yes.
We
feels
missed
like
you.
home.
Yes. Okay, so you came out here with the family. You all moved out here when? How long has it been?
2015.
2015. Wow.
Yeah.
Noelle was just, how old would she have been then? We're talking 9 years ago. So quick math, 10 years, take 10 years off where she's at now. 22-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Kyle was 21.
Wow. Okay. I still remember y'all coming in. You'd sit to my right. And those early days, y'all just had such a pleasant family and getting to know you guys. And of course, you've had quite a journey since you all came. So you came in, you said 2015. Okay. Fast forward a little bit. You moved away. How long has that been? Has it been a year and a half?
It's been a year and a half.
A year and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you said, I cannot go on without Castleview Baptist Church.
That's
I
right.
got to come back.
That's right. And the grandbabies help.
And the truth is the grandbabies, right? I mean, that's why you're back.
Yes.
Yeah. And you close on a house today.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Me too.
How did it feel Sunday being back in church?
It was awesome.
Was it?
Yeah. And then just the whole new building.
Yes.
And all, a lot of new faces, a lot of new people. So
a lot of people don't know
good.
this. You were on the design team. It was you along with your daughter Noelle was on it. Sarah Smith was on it. I was kind of a de facto person. Debbie helped a lot with it as well.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of work that was done that people wouldn't understand. Now you've been in the building though before this past Sunday, right?
Yes.
Okay, you've been in a service before too,
right? Easter, as a matter of fact.
That's right. Wasn't that a cool day?
And it was it was great.
Yeah. What do you think of it? When you sit there, do you feel like, oh, why didn't we? Or do you feel like, wow, this really turned out nice?
No, I think it turned out great. Yeah, a lot of things actually. Prior to walking into the church, I thought, oh, I wonder how that'll look, because it's all on paper and you're seeing little swatches. But then walking in, it was like, wow, it really came together well.
I don't know if people understand how many decisions come into play in something like that, right? There's so many. And then you've got these little swatches of color that you're making. This is going to be this huge building. And you've got all these swatches of textures and colors. And okay, is that all going to work together? And it just worked beautifully.
It did.
It
really
blended
turned out
well.
Nice.
Yeah, it really did.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you walked in and you go, boy, I wish we would have.
Nope.
Turned out really nice. So we've just come off of God's given us some really great opportunities with the building too. We had an amazing December.
Oh, wonderful.
We had guests after guests and a lot of salvation decisions. So the Lord's really used that building. So thank you for your work.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was fun.
It was fun. The design team was really easy
my
too.
Thing.
Wasn't it?
Yes, I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The design team never fought.
No,
there was never a fight, was there?
No.
Yeah. No. I mean, if there was a fight, it was more of a, maybe I think, and the other people would go, okay, I guess I can see that.
And 2 out of 3, we
That's
kind
right.
of, and then we swayed that third person.
Yes, it was so easy.
They were so great to work
with. It really was.
Yeah.
Well, your journey has been unique. It's been challenging. You've had some challenging days over the last. What year was Scott's diagnosis?
2019, January 3rd.
January 3rd. Okay. So Scott begins to, he's got some symptoms.
Yeah, he had some back in September 2018. He had some stomach issues, but he had also just been on some antibiotic, and he thought, "Oh, I think it's just." The doctor told him it's probably just from the antibiotic bothering
Sure.
your stomach. But then it increasingly got worse, and his belly was swelling. So he actually called a gastro and made an appointment, and they gave him a CT scan, not even really wanting to do that, thinking it wasn't necessary. And sure enough, it came back that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Yeah. At this point, he's so healthy. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
he's in our church. He's on the finance team. Matter of fact, Scott was the one that suggested back in, I think, maybe 2017 that we start putting a certain amount of money away to prove to the bank one day that we could handle it. And it
Right.
proved to be such a great move for us.
Wonderful,
He used to lead a singles volleyball team. He'd go out there and play. I think we won the championship one year.
We did.
Yeah, I don't know how big that league was, but I know we won the
It was pretty
championship.
good.
Yeah, and he was very active at that time.
Oh, yeah. He was riding his bike. He was hiking up the Castle Rock.
Yes.
On his way home from work, he'd call and say, I'm just going to run up the Castle Rock and I'll be,
Yes.
And he seemed perfectly healthy.
Perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
He's doing well at his work. He worked at Lockheed Martin.
Yes.
And had really very successful. I mean, I know he had some high level meetings that he
Yeah.
couldn't always tell me about.
Right, right.
And they always were asking him to even move higher, but he really prioritized family quite a bit.
Yes, he did.
Scott was just a really great guy all the way around, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah. What do you remember most about him? Anything stand out about? And by the way, before you even answer that, I would say this is true. And I don't know if I think the people that were here before know this. You and Scott had a love story, right? I mean, you two were so close, and everyone knew that, right? It wasn't. You loved each other and you've said this. Whenever you mentioned Scott, you mentioned Debbie. Whenever you mentioned Debbie, you mentioned Scott. You guys were just always together. You matched on Sundays at church.
He did that on his own.
Did
I
he?
never,
Yeah.
Ever since we were first married, he was like, what color are you wearing? And I'd put out my outfit, and he, at least his tie, would match, and he did that on his own.
He put a lot of pressure on a lot of guys because wives would go, "Why can't you do that like Scott does that?" And they'd be like, "Well, I don't want to."
I know.
Scott was that way.
People might have thought it was corny, but I thought it was endearing. I loved it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You took great care of him.
We did each other. I mean, that was he loved me immensely. I loved him immensely. And we both worked at it, even though we didn't feel like it was work. Our marriage was something that we just automatically tried hard to, keep it, the spark going and just be kind. Now, some of us had more patience than others, in the relationship. And of course, we fought like normal people, but we never, ever, and he always had a saying, do not go to bed angry. And at the beginning of our marriage, sometimes he'd just want to go to sleep and forget it.
Yeah.
But we always worked it out before we went to bed. That way, you kiss goodnight. And then in the morning, there's no hard feelings.
Yeah.
You can start your day off well. So for us, that was real important.
That was a key.
So
It was
you
real
would,
important. You'd make his lunch. You'd stand at the door, wave goodbye.
Wave every morning.
Every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure those are some of the things that you remember.
Yeah,
I'm sure
of
you're
course.
glad you did. You invested. Aren't you thankful now after everything that's happened in your life? Don't you look back? You've got to be so thankful that you took so seriously the time that you had together.
Absolutely. It was a priority, our marriage, our kids. But we always made it a priority. And, before he died, you always say, is there anything you regret? You think back and say, I asked him, Scott, could I have done anything different? You're going to make me cry. And we both said no. I mean, there's not one thing that we felt like, okay, we should have done this different. We just really, we didn't regret anything about our
I love
life
that,
together.
Debbie, because there's so many marriages that they just don't see the value of
Yeah.
and you're going to look back one day and say, why did we, those little arguments, it's so
Right.
stupid, it's just so foolish to be fighting over such
Right.
trivial things. So take us to September of 18.
Okay.
I believe that's when he was diagnosed. Is that right? Was it September of 18?
It's when his belly started hurting. January was
okay.
when
January is when he was
diagnosed.
he was diagnosed in January.
Yes,
Okay.
January 3rd.
Okay, so take us to that. You go to the doctor. You mentioned they want to do that CT scan reluctantly.
Yeah.
They don't really feel like. So you probably go into this meeting not thinking too much.
No, we thought he probably had an ulcer because also work at that point was, it went through ebbs and flows of stress and it was stressful. So he assumed maybe he had an ulcer or something, that was treatable. I mean, we never would have thought cancer because that didn't even run in his family. I mean, nobody, So yeah, we went in thinking, all right, maybe an ulcer or, something
Sure.
like that, or a virus.
Sure. And the doctor just sits you down and just gives you the news.
Yeah, well, it was taking a little long to come in. So when he came in the door, I remember Scott saying, "Hey, Doc, did you go to breakfast and didn't invite us?" And he didn't laugh, So then we're like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
And I can remember sitting. I was to the right of Scott, and we were holding hands. And when the doctor looked very serious, and we thought, "Oh boy." So he basically just came out and said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but you have stage 4 inoperable pancreatic cancer." And we both knew pancreatic cancer was one of those things that didn't have
know
a
that?
good. We
You
did.
did.
We
Okay.
did. So as soon as he said that, I squeezed his hand real hard, and Scott was real strong. He just kind of said, "Okay, what's our next step?" Meanwhile, I'm trying not to cry my eyeballs out, but the little tears are coming down, and I look at him, and he's just like, "Well, how long do I have?" And so basically, it was a shock to our system,
Sure.
and we just didn't know
Yeah.
what we were going to do from then on.
I got a call later I think it was later that day.
It
You guys
was.
were on your way home, I think, from the doctor visit.
Yes.
And I still remember, I don't remember exactly what he said, but I do remember his faith. I remember that he didn't want anyone worried about him.
Right.
And he basically just said, "Pastor, I got a prayer request for you."
Yeah.
Remember, I don't know if you remember
That's how
that or
we
not,
did
but
it.
that's how he
said it.
Yeah, I got a prayer request for you. And all right, Scott, what's going
Yeah.
on? And he told me, and his prayer request was not just for him, but this, his prayer request throughout the entire journey that he had, the battle with cancer, was, "I want my coworkers, I want people around me, my neighbors, I want them to see Jesus
Absolutely.
through this." That was really important to him.
It was, and
Yeah.
he didn't want to waste his trial. He didn't want to
Yes.
waste his illness. He
Yes.
said, "I can't waste this. God's doing this for a reason, and I want to be a good testimony, but I also want them to just see Jesus through me during this."
One of the you're exactly right. One of the hard parts, I think, for me, and I gotta believe this was one of the most difficult parts for you and for Scott, was he had such amazing faith through it that God was going to heal him, right? I mean, he really did. He really,
We did.
I believe God's going to do this. And I think he told coworkers that, and hey, God's got to, it's okay, whatever God does. We are surrendered to whatever he wants to
Right.
do, however he can get the most glory. But there was a strong sense, and you had this up and down
Yeah.
cancer battle too, right? Because you
yeah.
said the word a minute ago, inoperable.
Yeah.
So you got stage 4 pancreatic cancer. You guys kind of knew what that meant, and
Yep.
he says inoperable, and you're thinking the only chance you have is to be able to operate, right?
Right.
I think you guys even looked at some different hospitals around to see about
We
operations.
did. Yeah, we looked at Texas, MD Anderson. We looked California. We even looked at Mexico.
Yeah.
We looked at every opportunity.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the outcomes were a big,
Not going to
no
happen.
one survived.
No one survived. Okay. So they say inoperable until you get a phone call. And they, for what was the change? Why did they?
Well, he had been on the strongest chemo. They told him if he didn't do chemo, it would be 3 months and he'd die. lowest chemo, maybe 6 months. And then they said, if you do the best chemo, maybe you get 12 months. So we thought, all right, I'm going to do the highest chemo. So he did. And he was actually in our doctor's office. He was the only one who went through 12 rounds. Nobody else. It was strong, very
hard on
strong.
your
But
body.
I thought he did amazing. I thought
I did too.
Yeah. So he did get through that. And then they thought, okay, well, maybe we can try and operate. Now it was all intertwined with his major veins and arteries, and that was part of the big problem. But there was a doctor who came in from, I believe it was Sweden or Germany. But anyway, he came in and he was determined. Like he said, I think I can do this. So they set him up in August of 2019 to have this surgery. And so, yeah.
I remember this day. So you're down. You get the news that it's an operable stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Now you've got some hope that
Absolutely.
we have got this operation now. This is probably the only avenue for survival, and so now we get to do this. And then they give the news basically that if I think it was like 3 hours or something. I think they give you a time, like if we can get to 10 o'clock or
Yes,
something like
they
that,
did.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm in the waiting room. Your family's there. Some friends are there. And they said, if we're going to know around 10 o'clock if we can go forward with the surgery. By then we'll know, is it too intertwined? Is it not so intertwined? We're going to know if we can do it, right?
Right.
And so we'll call and we'll let you know. So I'm there and others are there. And at 10 o'clock-ish, you get a phone call.
Yeah.
And that phone call says, we get to do it. We're moving forward, right? Isn't that what happened? Am I misremembering this?
I think it was just basically, it came to 10 and we're all like, okay, yay, they must be working on it because
Is that right?
the phone call
I was thinking they did call. I'm.
You know what?
You'll
Maybe
have to
they
go
did.
back and
I
check on
might
that.
have been.
I'm. You know why?
You might be
here's
right.
why. Here's why I remember it. Because when you got the phone call, we were all rejoicing in
Right.
not just that it hit 10 o'clock, but the phone call came.
Okay.
And then I went to the restroom because now we're
We're good.
We've been here for a little while. Good time to step away. Everyone's really excited about what just happened. And then I came back and I couldn't have been gone for 10 minutes. And this was what was so unique to me was you got the phone call. They said, hey, we're moving forward. And then when I came back in, the family's gone. And I'm looking around going, where's everyone at? And I see there's a little waiting room and they had called your family in that waiting room.
Yeah.
And I can see the expressions on the faces.
I knew at that moment when they said the doctor wants to see you in the waiting room.
Yeah.
We kind of knew it couldn't have been good news. You know, it's
Yes.
never good when they pull you aside.
Right. In the middle of it. And they basically say it's we can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a moment for me that I thought, well, Lord, I guess I don't understand why would they even call and let them know that they could do it and now they can't. You know, and that was a little bit of a struggle.
That was discouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long then does he live after that?
Actually 1 year.
Was it a year after that?
It was a whole year, because August of 2020 was when he passed.
I'm going to ask you a question that's a little direct and maybe a hard question to even answer. So Scott passes away, and I mean, you talk about somebody that he dies in faith, right? I mean, he kept his faith all the way through.
Yes, he did.
Great testimony. He preaches at our church a couple of times, right? He preached ones on marriage.
Right.
He preached another sermon also. Both of them very powerful. As a matter of fact, he preached his own funeral. Remember that? Because we had taken some of the things he said, and I kind of, interwoven them through and set it up a little bit, but then we had actually used what he said, and I thought that was really a special thing for him to do that. But he goes through this journey totally in faith, but now he passes. Did you have moments that angry with God, disappointed certainly with God? Did you have some of those moments?
To be honest with you, I didn't at first. When he first passed, well, I was there. He was at home when he passed. We didn't have him in any hospice outside. A hospice nurse would come every few days. So he was at home. It was 1:30 in the morning, and I could hear I was just always sitting in the chair next to him, so I could hear his breathing change. And he took 3 last breaths, and I just stared at him like, is this how it all ends? There was no calling out. There was just, he just took a few breaths. And I guess I was hurt at God. Like, God, how could you do this? I was hurt, not angry, but I was hurt. And then all of a sudden we had to make arrangements and blah, blah, blah. So then when we came home from the arrangements and I walked in the door and the house was empty because my kids had all been, with me and around me for the past month or so before he died. And so I was alone for the first time. And I can remember walking in the door. And I think that's when a little bit of anger, nobody was home. So I wanted to be a good testimony to the children.
Yeah.
Because Scott always said, he wrote me a text and he said, listen, no matter what God chooses to do, I want my children to remember a mom. I want them to see a mom who loves the Lord still and who trusts God. And so that's something, again, to honor him. I wanted to make sure I'm not going to stray from you, Lord.
Yeah.
But I threw some pillows.
Yeah.
I laid on the ground, punched the floor. I mean, this is real. This is what grief does. So it's not like always, I'm so godly.
Absolutely.
I'm trusting. I threw a fit like a little kid on the floor. And I screamed. Nobody was in the house. So it's like I just let loose. But you know what? After that, I got up and I said, you promised, Scott, that you would not be like this. And I think that was the only time that I, kind of, and then I couldn't pray for the first few weeks, actually. And, the Bible talks about the Lord, your groanings. And it's actually a prayer for me because when I would groan or I would just say, God, I don't know what to say.
Yes.
I don't know what to ask for.
Yes.
Everything I've asked for. I had all the hope and it didn't pan out the way I thought. But I do know that you are a good God. I haven't figured out why you did this, but I don't need to. It's not, I don't need to know everything in God's plan. I think it's just a matter of just trusting him. And then I just needed help to get through. And that kind of was my only prayer, just help me. A lot of times I'd say, just help me.
Did you ever see that that meme or graphic or whatever? It's a blank piece of paper, lined piece of paper, and it says, "Dear God," and then you just see the tear stains on
That's
it.
me.
That's what I thought of when you said that. When you say you didn't pray for a few weeks, and it was kind of the groaning,
right?
Why was that? Was it totally, I don't know what to say? Was it a little bit of a letdown? Where do you think that stemmed from?
I think I felt like I prayed so much and so hard and so fervently and prayed without ceasing. I mean, I felt like
you did. When
I wasn't talking to someone, I was praying that he'd heal him, praying that, this could all go away. Just praying. And that I finally felt like I was drained of everything and I had no energy to pray. I didn't know what to pray. I didn't know how. Because I thought, Lord, what am I supposed to say? Thank you. I can't right now.
I'm not there yet. Yeah. I think you handle that so maturely, though, that okay, I'm not feeling great, and I'm not even feeling close right now, but I am going to make a decision that I trust you through these grieving days, and I know that my God is good, and I know you will take care of me, and we're going to be okay. I'm not there today.
Right.
I'm going to get there.
Right.
What has been the most unexpected part of grief?
Oh, I guess the length and the extent of it. I think maybe after a year, I thought, shouldn't I be feeling better by now? Shouldn't it lessen? People say with time. And I think it's 4.5 years ago now, and I still feel a heaviness, you know. I mean, I do have joy, and that can be intertwined, believe it or not. You can have your pain and you can have your joy, and they can be together, you know.
Sure.
But I just feel like that the length of the
I've
grief.
heard that it's kind of described as waves. You
Absolutely.
know, you've got those little breaks between the wave where you're having fun with the grandkids, or you've got a little hope for the future, or you're doing things like today, closing on a house, and you've got your life. But these waves, you know, consistently move in. Do they get further
They
apart,
do.
or no?
They do,
Okay.
yeah.
But you
they
still
do.
feel it just as acutely as you felt it at the beginning?
I do.
You do.
I know, yeah. Not everybody is like that, too. Everybody handles grief in their own way, in their own, you know, there's a saying, and I think I put it on my Instagram one time, you know, where there is great love, there's great grief.
Yes.
You know, how do you explain that? It's just, I loved him so intensely that my grief is very intense.
That's right. You couldn't have had one without the other.
Right.
What have you done? What's helped you when you grieve? What helps you get through those grieving moments?
Actually, a lot of times I'll call, you know, Noelle and I basically talked every day, and there were times I think that I would wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, you know, I'm going to try and make it a good day. But it would just be, you know, maybe it's near his birthday or near Christmas. I was a little, and then Noelle would call and the kids would call. And I just think I have a real good support system. I have my family. I have some really good friends that have been with me through it. They knew Scott. And I think for me, it's just kind of talking to somebody else, even though none of them have been really, you know, through it.
Sure.
I think just having that support system helps. Yeah.
When you mentioned you were, at the beginning, it was hard to pray. I don't know what to say. I am disappointed. You know, I certainly thought this was going to be a different outcome. Yes. You know, in the sermon on Sunday, I talked about Mary and Martha, and they were in, I'm sure John 11 really resonates with you at times, because you see, they call for Jesus, and he waits 2 days before he even starts making that journey. And when he gets there, they're upset. They're the first thing that Martha says is, where have you been?
Right.
You know, had you been here, my brother had not died. And it's always kind of funny to me too, because I read that and then Mary arrives. And Mary says the exact same thing. And so you know they're talking.
Right.
They're like, where's Jesus?
Of course they are. Yeah.
What is he doing? You know, we sent word to him and he's not here.
He knows.
And, he says he loves him. You know what I mean? He says he loves our brother. He says he loves us. And he's done nothing. You know, he hadn't even shown up. And I love that passage so much because we know the end of it. We know that Jesus is going to heal Lazarus, and Lazarus is going to be raised from the dead. But in verse 35, he takes a moment. He's just received the accusations from Mary and Martha. He's just kind of been beaten up a little bit. You know, they say what they're going to say. And then he weeps.
And he wept.
He just weeps with them. And he just takes that moment to feel what they're feeling. I would imagine that a lot of people want to help, but a lot of times we don't know how to help. Has it been a comfort to you, first of all, to know that Jesus wept, and to know that Hebrews 13:5, I will never leave you or forsake you? Debbie, I'm always going to be right here with you, even in the moments that you don't feel like I showed up the way that you wanted. Has that been a comfort to you?
Oh, yeah. And I don't know if someone sent me something, but they said about how, you know, Jesus, they collect your tears. And I thought, well, my goodness, he's going to have a lot of them to, but
I think, Lake Debbie right over here.
Exactly. But I think just knowing, I mean, he knows what's going on. He knows how I'm feeling. And sometimes I would say, but why? But then on the other hand, I would say, why not? A lot of people have suffered a lot more than I ever had. And so for me to say, well, why not? There's people that are, held captive somewhere, people that were, hurt and just have other issues that are a lot worse than
It's an
what we
interesting way to
had.
say
We
that.
had a wonderful marriage. We had a God who loves us and saved us. My husband's in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hurts sometimes, but why not me?
Yeah.
So
I don't think you should be rebuked for asking why. Mary and
Well,
Martha
Jesus
asked
asked
why.
why on the-
Jesus,
on
he
the
goes,
cross.
yeah, why hast thou forsaken
Exactly.
me? I don't think people should be rebuked for asking why. I don't think you want to stay in the why.
That's the key. Yeah, you
yeah.
can't dwell on that. You have to.
Yes.
And even Scott taught me that. He said, "I don't know why this is happening, but you know what? We're not going to stay there. We're going to
Yes.
enjoy every moment we have together.
Yes.
We're going to look at the blessings that God has given us, and I truly do try to focus on that, and that it
Yes.
has been a help. I'll go
Yes.
through and count all my blessings.
Yes.
And
Yes. I think you
Which are
move from
many.
the why. In our lives, we've tried to move from, okay, I don't want to ask the wrong questions. I might ask it for a while. Look, like, why did this happen?
Right.
But at some point you have to get to the what are you going to do with this? How are you going to use this in my life? Have you
Exactly.
seen this might be a hard question to answer, and you can just
Okay.
answer it honestly. You could say whatever you want to say. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Have you seen good come even out
From
of
it.
this? Because that's don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, hey, is this good? Are you
No, I know what
happy
you
with
mean.
it? No, of
No.
course you're not. But have you seen some good come from it?
I honestly have not. So I'm going to be very honest. I can pretend that things are, but I just told Noelle that the other day. I said, I really haven't seen because I would ask God, what do you want from it? What do you want to, Scott had a lot of coworkers come to different, funerals, listen to them online.
Yeah.
Nobody has said to me, I got saved from
Yeah.
this. And I guess that for me was what I was waiting for.
Sure. That would have taken the edge
It
off.
would have.
In
It
a
would have made
degree,
it a lot helpful.
Sure.
Scott
At
said it-
least I can see it. Yeah.
Because
Okay.
Scott always said, if one or two of my coworkers got saved from this, then
It'd be worth it.
I'll
Yeah.
go through this. But
Yeah.
I haven't heard. So that
Yeah.
part's like,
Yeah. You're totally still in the trusting phase. It's just you can't say,
Absolutely.
oh well, let me tell you about this thing, and oh, I see why.
Yeah.
Of course not.
I might never see why.
That's right.
I
Yeah, you
might
may
not
never
see on
why.
this side of heaven. I might never know or see.
But
why.
Lord, I've made a decision that I'm going to trust you.
Yeah.
I've made a decision that you're good. We talked in the sermon Sunday. Some people make the accusation when they go through trouble and pain and suffering. Well, God He doesn't care. And yet we see Jesus wept. We see Matthew says that about the two the sparrows won't fall to the ground.
Right.
These common birds that aren't worth very much, and you're worth much more than that. So we know that he cares, but I think Satan wants to come in though,
Sure.
and really pollute our thinking and cause us to turn away from what we know the truth is. So, what would you say to? We've got some recent widows in our church. Would you say anything to them? Anything that might be an encouragement? Anything that might, hey, this is how God helped me through some of these days? Anything come to mind that would be a help to them?
The only thing I could think is just stay close to God still. Even if you don't know what to pray, just acknowledge that he's there and you're hurting. And somebody once said, don't get bitter, get better. That's hard when you're going through.
Sure.
But God does love you, and he will be with you. But
Stay close to him, even. And I think that you stay close to him through the word, obviously, even when you're not feeling it, stay
Yeah.
close to him, right? You may not feel it as you read the word today.
Right.
You may not feel like praying today because but you still stay in it. You still continue to do it.
Yes.
You put yourself around God's people. You
Yes,
stay active in His church.
Yeah, that's it.
You want the right voices. I
Right.
would imagine you talked about friends in your life. You want the right voices
Yes,
speaking
very
into
true.
your because there's going to be voices. Satan's going to have a voice there that just says, "Hey, just give up." Just Job's wife, curse God and die. Why has all this happened?
Right.
Just curse God and die. I want to close with this. A lot of times people go through suffering and grief, and at church there are people, there are friends, Christian friends, that want to help, and sometimes we don't know how to help.
Yeah.
And so I want you, I've got a few things I wrote down here about maybe some ways it can help. And I want you to maybe speak into this, maybe some of the things that, that didn't help that much, or that did, or this thing happened. Don't do that.
Right.
And so let me just maybe throw a few
Perfect.
out. Okay. And you tell me what you think about these. These are kind of helps for people that are trying to help someone else through grief.
Okay.
I think the first one is just this: be present.
Yes.
Just be there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think we feel like we have to say the right things.
Oh.
Is there the right thing to say?
You know what? There really isn't. And if I could just give any advice, I think the best thing is to just be quiet and listen. Let the person do the talking or crying. I know I had a good friend come sit next to me, and I just cried, and she didn't say a word. Sometimes when people try to maybe preach, and the Bible verse, like I knew Bible verses,
It's good intention,
and they meant well, and I had to keep telling my kids that they mean well.
Yes.
They're not trying to hurt me.
Yes.
But on the other hand, saying, well, he was healed. I know he's in heaven and he's healed of his.
Sure.
But that's not the healing I was praying for.
And I'm hurting right now. So you're telling me right now, Debbie, that somebody's saying to you, well, everything happens for a reason. That's not comforting.
It's not helpful.
It's not helpful.
No. And I know they mean well by doing that, but no, I
No.
think just being there and being quiet.
This might sound funny, but I think, and maybe you can tell me from your experience, even somebody giving a Bible verse in that moment of pain, it doesn't. You still feel a little, like you said, maybe I know that already, but I'm hurting.
Right.
It almost maybe feels like people are minimizing your pain a little bit.
It is. It's almost like, and a lot of the people that never have been through it are the ones that want to try and, use the scriptures. And the scriptures are great when I'm doing it on my own.
Yes, sure.
But
sure.
It just wasn't. It just wasn't what I needed.
Yeah,
at that time. And everybody's different, but
right. But I think the perfect example is that one that you just said. They just sat there.
They sat there, let me cry,
and just let
me
you cry.
talk about Scott. That's another thing. I had some family members that kind of didn't want to talk about him when he was gone, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I got that written down. It's the last one actually, but I'll skip to it because you
sorry.
just said it. That's okay. Celebrate the loved one's life.
Absolutely.
I
Please
think
keep talking about him.
Yes, keep his memory alive.
Yes.
Sometimes I think people don't want to say the name Scott because, I'm going to remind Debbie that her husband died.
Like I forgot it.
Like you forgot it. Yeah, you're right. I don't want to talk about that negative thing. A reminder.
Right.
No, you think about it every moment of every day. It's always on your mind. But you love to be able to remember and reminisce.
Yes.
The funny things he said, the helpful things he did, the spirit. It's you enjoy that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's helpful to you when people want to
Mm-hmm.
remember him. Yeah, I love that. I think like we kind of covered it. Number 3 for me was avoid cliches. Everything happens for a reason. And I think we've covered that well. Just acknowledge that someone's hurting. Just sit with them, cry with them. Number 4, offer practical help. Sometimes it's difficult for somebody to function during those moments, right? Just simple things can take a load. You may not feel like making dinner,
right?
You may not be eating very healthy in that moment because it's everything I can do just to kind of survive. Yeah, you're in survival mode a little bit.
Right.
And let me ask you this: would it be helpful? I think sometimes we say, "Hey, if you need anything, let me know, or even,
Right.
or even,
I'll never
hey,
let you know, by the way.
right, you're not going to, or even, hey, if I can drop a meal by, let me know. You're not going to do that.
Right. And I'm the type of person, I don't like to ask for help. I've been
Yes.
scolded for that, but it's just, I don't want to put people out. I don't want to.
Yeah.
So when people would come to the door and say, I just made that, sometimes they wouldn't even want to come in. And clearly I wasn't in the mood to entertain, but
Yes.
they would just drop something off. And
Yes.
that was very,
Just go find something to do. Yeah, find something to do.
Yeah.
I know you have a neighbor. I know Rick. It snows, and he just goes over and shovels and takes care of it. You don't have to ask.
No.
Just head over and take care of it. God lays something on your heart.
Yeah.
I know people in our church dropped coffee by, and they would just drop by to just say hello. And here's some coffee. I just wanted you to know that you're on our heart today. I think those little
and
things.
they mean a lot. They really do. I mean, people just think it's not much, but it really does mean a lot to the person grieving, I think.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree. Another one would be stay connected. And here's what I've sometimes tried to encourage people with that have someone going through grief. It's not, hey, stay up with them until the funeral and encourage them until the funeral. There's so many things going on in your life up until the funeral. You have so many plans. You really don't even start grieving till after
So
that.
I got home and I threw a fit.
That's
when
right.
it hit me.
That's right. You get home now.
Right.
You think people kind of not forget, but they kind of
they
move
go
on
with their lives.
They go on with their lives,
Which is understood.
Sure, but people to stay connected is important. I would think
It is. It is. I know you guys sent me flowers on his first anniversary, and I thought, wow, people remembered when he died the first. And I thought, that meant a lot to me. Or on his birthday, I had a few people send me cards thinking of you today, and I thought they remembered it was and stuff like that meant a lot, even though it was a small gesture. It did.
Yeah. I think people. You need community through those days. You need people. You may not feel like talking.
Right.
You may not. And I know it can get awkward sometimes because, the person grieving's not in a huge talkative mood and they don't know what to say, but it does mean something just to stop by and hey, I just wanted you to know I'm thinking about you.
Right.
Debbie, you have been such an encouragement to me and my wife. Watching you go through this, you and Scott both have just. I think the church learns so much by watching the way that you went through, and I want you to know that we love you, and we're so glad you're back. We really are. We're so thrilled
Praise
to have
the
you back
Lord.
here
I'm thrilled.
at our church and back part of our community here. And thank you for just taking a few minutes and sharing. What it's like. I think there's going to be some people that listen and go, that's exactly how I feel. I didn't know what to do with this or how to make, should I be guilty that I'm struggling with a little bit of disappointment or that I'm throwing pillows or screaming, when people aren't around.
They're not alone.
They're not alone.
No,
And I
we've
think
all done that.
I think as much as anything else, this conversation tells people, hey, you're not alone.
Not at all.
And thank you for trusting Christ even through these difficult days. And if there's a lesson in this, I think the lesson that you gave is I just decided that I was going to trust him. I didn't understand him. And I think you would say you don't understand it now.
No, I still don't.
Still don't understand it, but I trust him.
Right,
and I know that he's good. Thank you for sharing your testimony with us today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And Castleview, thank you for watching. And listen, I just want to encourage you, so many of you going through so many things, and get yourself rooted in a community. Get yourself in the Word. Make sure that you just make the decision, Lord, I don't understand this right now, but I am going to trust you that you are good and that you're going to work all things for your honor and your glory through it. And if you're struggling, reach out to us. Let me know. There are a lot of you that are struggling that I wouldn't even know about it, and I would sure love to be able to help. And just to be honest, there are people like Debbie Iepson and a number of other people in our church that would love to talk with you that really understand it a little bit better than I would understand it. And by the way, Debbie, this is true. Sometimes when someone's going through something, they hear something different from someone that's been through it than they hear from someone that hasn't been through it.
True.
We've had a lot of circumstances in our church where it can be cancer. Donna Brown has talked to a lot of our ladies that have gone through breast cancer. And honestly, I've said the same things to these ladies. You know, I've shared the same things.
Right.
And then they tell me later, oh, Donna said. And I think to myself, well, I said
told you
that
that.
too. I said the same thing. You know, I said it.
Yeah.
But I know what that is. No, Donna's gone through it.
Right.
And so I really do think that's important, that you find somebody, and we can help you with that. Find somebody to help you grieve and go through the days that you're going through with some kind of an understanding. Hey, thank you again for watching, and we will look forward to seeing you again next week.